it is a mess. It's an absolute mess. And whatever way you spin it, like having this many people learn new roles is hard to do. We saw it in Astralis. We saw it with Yabi taking up anchor, and you think, oh, I'll be fine. And then he gets like 0.9 ratings on CT side consistently. Even Stown, who was still in rotate spots, but not his preferred rotate spots, with Playmeth in his preferred spots, he had a massive drop-off as well. And that was a lot about the team style as well. Like, I don't think it'll be quite as bad as that Astralis team, but it's got shades of it with 4 riflers who are used to being at least somewhat set up on CT side. And I do worry for malbs and Hunter on certain maps, especially.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees. Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
But one thing remains the same: victories with 1xbet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Counter-Strike fans across the globe, welcome to a special episode of HLTV Confirmed. If you bought your skins, head over to trade.gg. If you're in the marketplace for some new ones, they might have some that you're looking for. And 1xbet, remember to gamble responsibly. Today we have a special episode which will not be including Prof. He's off having surgery for his anal fissures. It's a bit of an issue for the amount of time he spends on the toilet, so he will be hopefully getting them fixed and will be able to join us again, so we won't be sitting down for a couple of weeks. Lucas pressing the 1s, 2s, and 3s. Striker repping a G2 shirt, which is blaring. It looks like he's going to a sports carnival.
Kind of crazy, yeah. I just said, as I said on Twitter, I'm just repping this afternoon just because nobody else will for the foreseeable future, apparently. So I just figured might as well do that.
Okay, well, we do have a G2 fan with us, and Nero, aka Harry Richard, Harry Richards. And I was reading, you have a biography on HLTV.org, and this is what it says. Harry Richards is a senior writer at HLTV, specializing in statistical deep dives and feature writing. He started working in Counter-Strike for TLDR Newsletter and Rushby Media in 2021 before finishing his degree and joining HLTV in 2022. Harry, you've been on the show before. Welcome back.
Yeah, good to be here. Not good to have the LinkedIn dropped in straight away.
It's not LinkedIn. It's on HLTV.
It's actually,
no, I know it is, but it's the LinkedIn tone. You know, it's the horrendous police report prose that HLTV is known for.
Well, we started with anal fissures, and then we went to something a little bit more formal. I wanted to, talk quite seriously today because you gentlemen have been pumping out more content in the last 24 hours around this fucking G2 stuff. In case anybody missed it, Snax joined G2 to be the in-game leader. Then I think people can keep up with. And that's what we're here to discuss today on the special episode. So we probably won't be going for a full 2 hours. We'll see how long this conversation goes for. But we're still going to do Skinionaire. We're still going to do what are the odds. And we're going to talk an awful lot about G2. But Striker, you knew a little bit before the people at home. And I imagine Harry, you knew as well a little bit before the people at home. So when you guys heard this news, did either of you get excited?
I actually used the titles today are literally the first reaction that I saw from all three of us. For you, I just used the one that you said on your other podcast. For Harry, I literally used the reaction that he gave me when I told him this was an option, this was on the table. So and yeah, mine's just kind of in the line. I don't remember my reaction actually, but this was something along the lines of this. So that's our titles today.
Okay. So it seems like two of us. Well, like I'm in the middle. When you told me, I was like, well, I don't really care about this. I'll be completely honest. It didn't blow my socks off. It didn't get me excited. I was like, well, okay, fine. I didn't expect this to happen. This isn't the direction I wanted it to go. I thought we were going to be embracing the superstar in-game leader era, but that wasn't the case. But Striker, it feels like you're a little bit on board with this. Would that be fair to say?
I mean, I said it before that it's not that I hate either of these moves in isolation. It's more together that I'm really concerned about where this is going to leave G2 in the long term. I think that's where a lot of people lie. Like, I'm actually not against Snax as an in-game leader overall if it was with a different move from malbs, and I'm also not against malbs on its own if it was from the perspective of Nico in-game leading, because then you would have had a lot more of a way to balance it out properly. But in combination, it seems it's going to be a difficult one to figure out.
So, but before we jump like too much into the roles, because Harry, I saw you putting out some stuff about that. There's an article that people can go and read on the website, and we will get really stuck into all of that to discuss the minutiae of it. But from a bigger picture, without getting into the nitty gritty of how it's going to work in the server, do you see any positives from this change? Like, is there any way that you can see this being a good move without like the role clashes leading the forefront of your mind here?
Yeah, I mean, the role clashes is people do. I think players especially like to say that it doesn't actually matter that much. It's like they want to think they're versatile, they want to think they're adaptable and things like that, right? So it doesn't have to be the be all and end all. Like, this isn't like an Astralis situation where it's like a complete clash of everything. Like, I think it's, bring some good vibes, get the Dallas energy. It doesn't have to be a disaster. It's just more, you want an exciting roster move, and I think the thing with the HooXi Snax swap is it's just kind of sideways at best. And then when the malbs thing comes in as well, it's like, yeah, I'd like to see malbs in a European team, but maybe one where he gets all his roles and you can see the true malbs, right?
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of concerns come in, because he's obviously a younger individual, and it would be a shame for him to come into a team like this and have his legs cut off at the knees before he can even really get going, right, to show us what he has against the other best Counter-Strike teams in the world. I thought Pitter made a pretty interesting tweet, and I want to get your takes on this. So he tweeted yesterday after this news was announced, not long after. He did it at 6:12. I don't know the exact moment the news came out, but it was sometime around 6 p.m. CEST. Yep. He said G2's timeline is the next 6 months. Months 1 to 3, decent results. Months 3 to 5, mixed results. Months 5 to 6, really poor results. Month 6, Nico and Modesty leave G2. So other than the last part, I kind of, and maybe even on a slightly longer timeline, I find myself agreeing with that. I think in the short term, it'll actually be okay. But as the residue builds up over time, if they're starting to cop some losses, I think the cracks of what we're going to discuss with a lot of these role clashes and issues like that will rear their heads. And I think if players aren't able to have the impact that they are hoping to have, that's when they're going to recoil a little bit, and they're not going to be putting their best foot forward all of the time. And then I do think there will be issues with this. Does anybody think this has legs? Are we being generally as a community too harsh about this? And what do we think about Pitter's tweet?
I think the malbs one's interesting because, like, he's clearly quite deferential to G2. Like, I think he's going to come in and be able to take that kind of, like the Stewie role, but shooting much harder. And I think that could actually change kind of the whole structure around G2 as well, because they're so used to having HooXi, who is just kind of like a lamb, right? So I think there's going to be enough of a change to how G2 normally play that you don't know how it's going to affect the others. Like, you don't know if it's going to bring Hunter back, maybe, if he has a few different roles as well. Like, it's like, I think there is an argument that it's going to open up other players a bit more. And the extra few kills you get from Snax as well. Like, I don't think it has to be disastrous. I think with the personalities, maybe it's easier to work with, like someone like malbs and Snax. Like, they're kind of quite chill, really, generally. Like I think Snax maybe not always, but I think you can definitely see it working as more of like a committee, especially on CT side. And I think maybe that could suit them long term.
Well, let's put a pin in one of the things that you just mentioned there. Do we, as a group, Striker, do you think Snax will frag harder than HooXi?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious, obviously. And I think people were looking at Gamer Legion. I saw some comments saying like, but he had all the star roles. I'm like, he had some of the star roles. I mean, he still had a lot of the bitch spots that, you know, nobody really wants to play. And it's not like he was constantly refragging people, you know, being the second guy in. None of that was happening with Snax. You know, he was kind of more individualistic, not really in the pack a lot. So, and on CT side, of course, he was a rotator, but you see a lot of in-game leaders in that position, and it's not necessarily because they're stars. So I think I just disagree with that in general, that that he just has these stats because he is just purely because he's in better spots. Of course, he is compared to HooXi, but I also think he is a smarter player. He is much better in the late round. He is very, you know, even when you look at him now, you can see the Snax that was playing like 6-7 years ago. You know, being very cerebral about the game, and not necessarily just about being about the shooting, always being in the right positions and stuff like that. So I think generally, especially because he's not going to be expected to just be the sacrificial lamb, assuming malbs is going to take a lot of those aggressive positions, I do think that the output from him is going to be better, and probably because malbs is obviously a much better aimer than HooXi from that position as well. So I think overall, firepower-wise, I do agree.
Okay. What about, is the age a concern? Snax is 30, right? I understand. And he's only been in-game leading. He was doing it a little bit with like mixed teams, right? Or Polish rosters. And then he went into Gamer Legion in September of last year. And then now he's made it onto this team where Nico and Hunter, I'm not saying they're old, but they're in their late 20s, right? So you've got m0NESY and malbs now who are a little bit younger. The team when it had nexa and HooXi was extremely old. Same when it had JKS in terms of average age compared to a lot of the teams out there. Are we concerned about that? And does that say anything about the direction of G2? Because to me, it feels like this team with this addition is, okay, we think we can win now. That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you consider the core is definitely on the older side. I think, I mean, generally they are 25.6, right? And that's with m0NESY being, is he still 19? I think he's still 19, right? And malbs 21. I think there's enough of an output from Nico that you can't really say that he's like past the zenith and just like he's going to the position where he's not going to be on the top 20 anymore. I think he's one of those players that you kind of expect to be to push the boundary on the age limit, and you know how long he can compete. We're saying that even now, you know, at the beginning of CS2, maybe we were starting to have those concerns, but I still think, and that was also a big part of my reasoning why I thought it was a bad idea to put him on the IGL position now, was because, you know, I don't want to cut his star career short, because he still has, like, realistically, he still has a year or two out of him where he can put up these kinds of numbers, and I don't see why he should cut that short, you know, just because the opportunity is there for him to take it, you know. So I think there's still time for him. So I wouldn't say he is like too close to starting bottoming out. I think Hunter is where that discussion starts happening more, because we've already seen it. But at the same time, I mean, you have some really hard shooters on the other side that maybe it's not going to matter, especially considering the floor of G2 is definitely higher now from an output perspective.
Okay.
I feel like, because we actually got Petsa to confirm to us, didn't we, like the contracts for Nico and Hunter? Like, yeah. A lot of people, including me, were presuming maybe this summer, maybe this winter that they'd be up. But there was a lot of rumors about that, but he told us it was well over 2024 or something. Yeah,
definitely not ending this year. So, and he said technically well into 25. Yeah. You know, who knows what that means exactly, but at least,
yeah, right.
Like, we're not expecting them to leave post Shanghai Major like straight away.
Yeah, but my main point with that is, I think when those contracts do expire, and I'd expect them like mid 25-ish, like, I don't think all three of them will be on the team after that summer. I think you will see either Snax has done well and he gets to stay, and then they probably rotate one of the others. But I do think the age is just generally, like, especially CS2, like, you kind of, like, it's an extreme example, but you look at Gamer Legion on the other side, like, Snax leaving, they're going to have like an average age of about 18 or something. So then you're looking at G2, and you don't want the Falcons approach to end up being a thing. You do want the Zoomers, and I think m0NESY malbs obviously are that, but I would be very interested to see how Hunter develops over the next year, because I think he is probably the one who you're looking at, who you want to keep your spot, especially if he ends up being a full lurker, when there's lots of 19-year-olds who are very good at that.
Yeah, I had pretty much the same take on Twitter as well, where I was saying that my early prediction would be, especially, it's not even just because of that, but especially because Hunter is kind of expected to take up different roles or take a little bit of a step back. It's obviously we're going to see how much of that, is going to be the case. Like if he's actually going to anchor, if he's not going to anchor, if he does, like my point was, if he does take those positions back, then I think there's going to be a problem with him long term staying on the roster because, yeah, as you say, like he's going to be the next one that people will look to replace. And that's also was part of the reason why I was kind of surprised when I heard that Nico was getting game lead in Dallas. I thought that was a good opportunity for Hunter to try his hand at it properly for an event and see if that's something in his future, because I think there have been signs that was going to be in his future. I think Kassad even said it himself that he sees in game leading in Hunter's future. I think he's been in game leading for like pistol rounds for a while as well. So like there's a part of that. There's part of the preparation part that he obviously is used to, but question is how much he can do it on a full-time basis. But that's why I thought, like, especially at this point where we're already seeing some sort of a decline from Hunter, especially from a consistency side, that this would be his next natural move. Like before Nico does it in a year or two, Hunter's going to try it first, and then we'll see if he can extend his career this way. But that didn't happen, and I'm curious about if that was ever a conversation, if he just doesn't want to do it, or what happened there, or if just there's not enough confidence in him doing it, or if it's because Nico is also on that team that he wouldn't do it. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but that was also my prediction that it's going to be Hunter who's next out of the team.
Okay. Well, do we want to get into the roles and stuff now and dig a little bit deeper into that and have that conversation? I don't know if we want to bring up any of these graphics or anything that you have.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we can
maybe the CT
delve into it for sure.
Okay. What should we send to Lucas here to bring up just from the article?
I could ping it to him.
Yeah. Lucas, you're going to have to bring this up for everybody playing at home, and then we'll get Harry to take us through this and the expectations, because I suppose the reason that I had sold myself of the opinion that Nico was going to in-game lead was because if they just brought in an anchor, it felt like everything would have made a lot of sense, right? That was so, and I was excited to see if Nico could actually take that on, and how well he could do in that role, obviously considering the Dallas success. But here we go, whack it up on screen. G2 now have 4 riflers who would rather be rotating. That's a provocative headline, isn't it?
Yeah, got to hit him with it sometimes. But I think that was the exact same conclusion I had when malbs was signed. Like I was just like, well, they're going to try and find an anchor then, right? Because then it just rounds it out perfectly. You need like Hunter's this really good flex rifler on T side. You just need a lurker and an anchor, and you just sign Crimbo, sign Perfecto, and it's like it's a super team with a star IGL, right? And that's kind of where a lot of it's going. We're hearing a lot about Twistzz, maybe IGLing, device IGLing, like that kind of 2016, 2018 generation is IGLing. And it thought maybe this is time for Nico. Because you just look at this and there's a clash on every map. Like someone's going to have to learn a new spot on every single map. And like that is fine, maybe. Like I don't think Snax will mind too much having to anchor. I think they are going to have to put Snax in basically anchor spots on every map. Like he might keep Cave because it's a weird one where Nico likes playing the anchor. But other than that, like you really are, like you're looking at malbs or Hunter saying which one of you is taking it this map, because it is a mess. It's an absolute mess. And whatever way you spin it, like having this many people learn new roles is hard to do. We saw it in Astralis. We saw it with Yabi taking up anchor, and you think, oh, I'll be fine. And then he gets like 0.9 ratings on CT side consistently. Even Stown, who was still in rotate spots, but not his preferred rotate spots, with Blamef in his preferred spots, he had a massive drop off as well. And that was a lot about the team style as well. Like I don't think it'll be quite as bad as that Astralis team, but it's got shades of it with 4 riflers who are used to being at least somewhat set up on CT side. And I do worry for malbs and Hunter on certain maps, especially.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you mentioned it earlier about players, when to say that they're flexible and the roles don't matter and they can do this and that. I think you see that in the early stages, everybody is happy to kind of take on extra shit, right? To take the lumps necessary when you're going to put a team together. And in the early stages, I can see, because these players will be new to these type of positions, they'll be watching a lot of demos, they'll be watching the best players in the world. They'll also have their own little unique flavor and flair that they'll put on, and maybe they will be decent in them. But it's going to come over time where, oh, this isn't working. What do we look to change? Oh, well, I like to do this before, so let's put me back in these positions. Then someone else is going to get shoved some shit job, right? And that's where it's going to be tough, because you still, and you always have with this team, you're always going to have a hierarchy where Nico and Hunter, they're going to eat first. Monacy's always eaten. He's up on a fucking throne. Like, he ain't got any issues, right? He doesn't even come into the conversation. And then it's about, well, what happens to malbs and his development as a potential future star? And then Snax is unfortunately the one who probably has to eat the most shit out of everybody, but he's chosen to go in this direction. So, how can you feel too sorry for him, knowing what he's getting himself into with this, right? So I look at all of these overlaps and I go, well, you can solve them, but somebody's going to suffer. And then how badly will they suffer? Because there's certain positions, and I think it needs to be said, like, people who are rotating around, they're looking at the radar a lot more. They're reacting to the teammates' information of what's happening regarding utility. And then you put them in a situation where you just have to sit, stare at your crosshair, have all the information from the rest of the map come in, and then hopefully you block at the right time or get that double kill, right? Because that's the difference between a good anchor or a bad one. Can you delay? Can you get that multi-kill that will essentially change the outcome of the round? And some positions, like, for example, I think Aeon Anubis is an anchor position, but I think it's a bit more of an active one, or at least it can be played that way. So it doesn't feel that bad. Like, you throw somebody over there like malbs or whatever. It's like, okay, put your own spin on it, bro. You could be hyper aggressive, man. You can take a lot of fights. Obviously, you'll need to play passive when we need you to, but there are going to be opportunities where you can do things a little bit differently. But then you have to be the pit anchor on Dust 2. It's like, yeah, good luck, bro. Like, maybe once in a half, maybe twice, you get to push long doors, and that's if you want to take a massive risk, right? So all the positions aren't weighed up equally either. So that's going to be the first thing that they have to solve. But then I also think about the map pool. Over at Gamer Legion, they weren't playing much Inferno whatsoever, other than a little bit at the start of the year. And that is what I would say is the best map for G2 would be Inferno, at least over the last stint. They were always really strong on Inferno. And now that's something where you have an in-game leader come in. Now he has to call. He hasn't been calling on it for the better part of the year. So are they even going to be calling the way he wants to call, or are they just going to say, hey, let's just do what we did with HooXi? Like, I have so many concerns.
Or are they even going to play Inferno? I mean, there's a world where they just pick up Mirage, because that's also a good map for malbs. I think, Harry, you can maybe bring up the stat that you found out for malbs' CT side and connector.
Yeah, it's CT side malbs with like a top 50 filter this year. He's got a 1.88 rating on CT side Mirage, and that's like 9 maps. Plays? That is when Nico plays, yeah. So I think he'll have to go to A anchor, but it's not the best opposition, but there's a few, and he's like, that's 9 maps, which is actually quite a lot for like one single map. Like, that is a big sample size, and it's just things like that. It's like, he is so good in that position. He could have gone to Liquid and got that spot maybe, and Twistzz goes short or something. But he's made a career decision where he has to come here, and he won't be getting spots because it's Nico's spot, and it's just what you do with that, I think.
Yeah. And so, like, the thing is, do we think Hunter can I don't know. Like I just said, I think that Hunter and Nico are going to eat. Well, would I'm
not so sure. Actually, you're right about that. Just because of, I think there's always going to be a little bit of a back and forth. I don't think there's going to be like one specific solution, because I think there's a lot of ways you can mix it up. And I think it would be a really bad idea for malbs, who is, I think everybody knows by now, he's mega aggressive. Like even in positions that other players aren't, you know, like even if you put him on ancient middle, like some players, like that's Hunter's position, right? That some players played very passively. Hunter has something like, I was looking through like each map, Hunter had something like 18% opening attempts from CT side on ancient. And meanwhile, malbs from that same position playing that has like 28% or something like that. So he plays the same position extremely differently. And I'm assuming that even if you put him in an anchor spot, he's probably going to call for a lot of aggressive moves. He's just not going to play it like as a traditional anchor most of the, or at least part of the time, you know, like whenever he is allowed to do any aggressive moves, he's probably going to go for it because that's just his general tendency. He is over aggressive in every single, like pretty much every single position he plays. He is above average aggressive in terms of going for openings. So I think from that perspective, like, does that mean that even if they put malbs in these positions, is he just going to play them completely in a completely non-standard way, where he's going to be set up more like somebody's going to be supporting him, like a Hunter, for example? Or is he just going to actually get buried and he's going to have to play them passively, and while everybody else has what they want? But I do think that there's no way where they just put him in all the bad spots, because I think that's how you bury an up-and-coming star, and it's just how you like he's played, what did you say, Harry, or what did you look at? There was like 6 maps against top 10 teams, right? And that's all G2, I'm pretty sure.
This year, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he only played against G2 in terms of like against high opposition. He obviously performed against them, but it is a very small sample size, so we don't know what he's going to be like. 6 maps? Yeah,
so it is top 10 this year.
So it is literally those 2 games at Pro League that they played against G2, where he has like a 130 rating or something like that. So it's not like he can't play against good teams, but it's more like he hasn't been so much tested. So it's hard to say, like that's already going to be a big enough adjustment for him. So to put him in all the different spots, he's only going to get maybe some on T side that he prefers, or at least a lot on T side, but CT side he's going to get buried like this. I think I would be surprised if G2 did that. I would be surprised if anybody did that these days. I think we've seen plenty of teams just bury their talent this way and just putting like aggressive pieces, anchor positions, just because they needed a better fragger in those positions. And that's all they were thinking about. They weren't thinking about whether they're actually good for it. So that's I'm hoping they don't do that, because then I think that would be a waste of malbs' talents and also his preferences.
Yeah,
I think the example's Flames, right? He's something stupid like 130 T side this year and then 1.00 CT side, because that is what they've done exactly to him. He is in a lot of these anchor spots. And I do think the malbs Hunter like site combo, like I don't think it really matters too much which way round they are on a lot of maps, because I think Hunter, like what Hunter's really good at is being a supportive rotator with like lots of harrying damage, lots of grenades and everything. Like he is very, very good at that. Like being Hunter's anchor is not like the worst thing in the world for malbs. I think he can be a turret who gets multi-kills where a lot of players wouldn't. Like that is kind of the job. I think he can do it with Hunter, and it doesn't always have to be such a narrow star support divide in anchor rotate spots. Like lots of teams do have it. Like it's why a lot of IGLs can be rotators and it's fine. Like there is kind of a star anchor meta at the moment. So yeah, there is a way out for sure. There's just certain maps especially where I think the small sites will be a massive problem, because like malbs, like you say, he's like a brawler. If he's going to be aggressive, you might want him on the big sites, but the small sites, like you can play malbs places like Pit and he'll get a few kills and stuff, but you're so restricted there. And then, so what, you put Snax there? Like places where teams, if they think there's a weakness, and Snax is better than HooXi, but he's not like a star fragger. If the teams see a weakness in spots where 1 kill wins you the round, like do you really want your IGL there? Because if Hunter, malbs, and Nico are running down banana together, because Hunter will start B quite a lot, m0NESY gets smoked off and they're just popping onto Snax, like that just feels like something that's going to happen twice a half. And it doesn't really matter if he's better than HooXi. You're comparing him to the players who play there that are like ropz, Crimbo, Perfecto.
Like Magisk, I think, played there for a while.
Magisk, yes. Like it's a different job. I don't think it's as simple as just like, I'm more worried about the Snax thing than the Hunter malbs site duo. I think Hunter and malbs will be fine. I think Snax is the one where he's going to be put in positions where you put really talented players, and he's not in his prime anymore.
Couldn't they just use him though? Let's keep using Inferno as the example, right? Let's say they did go for something where they put malbs as the Pit player, and if he wants to, he can look at it more from ropz's page as opposed to like Shush's page, right? Like ropz is quite active in apartments. He's searching for a lot of fights to get set up. At least when Twistzz was in the team, they were doing a lot of moves together and stuff, right? So you could use malbs in that sense, and then just have Snax as the aggressive banana guy, is like HooXi doing, just running through the mollies and smokes, trying to get the space, and then Nico behind to trade or help fortify that area of the map. That seems like that'd be fine. But we're talking an awful lot about the CT side, gentlemen. Should we be more concerned about the T side? Like this is harder to speculate because we've only seen Snax leading Gamer Legion as far as big kid Counter-Strike is concerned. So,
we've seen it in VP, but it is a long time ago, and we don't. And
ancient
it's
history,
like,
mate. We talk about my games, we may as well.
It is an entirely different meta, so like it's very difficult to tell how much we can actually put stock into that.
Well, so let's think about it. But overall, from the T side, like positions is one thing, but in terms of approach to the game, and then there's another question that I ask myself is how much was Ash in control of the way that Gamer Legion played? And then I see people citing some stats about Gamer Legion having bad T sides. I didn't bother investigating that a lot. It's not so that I thought, I better look into this, but. What's the general feeling about the T sides, or what we could expect it from G2? Because you're going to have to let your players play, which is essentially what they were doing before anyway, right?
That's kind of what I was standing. That's kind of where I was standing. That like Snax doesn't have to be a mega IGL for this team to work realistically, because he has there's going to be a lot of individual decisions on this team regardless. I mean, you have Nico, Hunter, Modesty, who are all, and then you put malbs on top of that, who also is kind of used to making decisions for himself and just opening up places, like based on some support and stuff like that. So do you really have to be, of course you have to be good at mid-rounding, and you have to be like calling the right things, especially in terms of the prep. I think I was listening to you guys talk on the other podcast, and
you can say the name.
Yeah,
you can say the name. It's
I could say the name. And I think Yanko put it in the right way, where it's a lot about the prep and it's a lot about game plan and stuff like that. And I'm sure that is a lot about the coach IGL combo, obviously, and about the prep part of it. And I don't know where Snax is with that. I mean, we don't really have too much to go off of. I mean, I was looking at Gamer Legion. I was impressed with how they played. I even said it on Twitter when somebody said like this thing about them having the worst T side. I'm like, if you have pieces that they had, like it's not even like you can really rely on Acor as an upper, and then you have Isaac and Kios who are just going to be kind of up and down. They're not gonna light up the server. He has nobody like the previous Gamer Legion did with him, who was just opening stuff up for them, taking space everywhere, and just making sure that they actually have like space to play around with. So in that team, I would have expected Snax to have some actual agency, but in this team, I mean, he would have to. That's why also he was in positions where he had to do some individual moves, because like who else would? There was no, like Vault wasn't in great form either when he was with Snax. So you don't have anybody to rely on. So you kind of have to do it yourself as an IGL, and then you're just setting yourself up for failure anyway because of the pieces you have. And that's also proven by the fact that Gamer Legion have changed 3 of those players now. That's literally Vault is the only remaining player on that team now. Yeah, and Flamos. So it's from all those perspectives, like it's obvious that team was not working whatsoever. And it's not like their CT side were lighting up the server as well. I was actually going to look into that because I forgot the number, but their CT sides weren't anything amazing either. So it's just the team wasn't working particularly well. And I don't think when you have pieces like that, there's not much you can do with them. There's only so much you can do. So it
doesn't feel like you're making a case though for Snax here.
I was gonna say like there's obviously, now that he has the pieces, that's where the pressure comes, right? I'm just saying that I wouldn't necessarily put so much stock into Gamer Legion's T-sides failing just because of him. They're going to look at that and they're going to be like, okay, that's always the IGL's fault if your T-sides are bad. I'm like, well, it's not actually that. If you don't have the team, you can't really have the T-sides if you don't have the right players in the right positions.
They also played a lot of overpass. Like the T-ramp win percentage is kind of hard to deal with. Like I think the actual stat Mary pulled up was like literally CT side win rate minus T side win rate. And it's like if your first pick's overpass, like Vitality always have a good T side win percentage. And it's like, yes, they're good at some maps, but they play a lot of Inferno, they play a lot of Anubis. Like it's gonna be higher. You've also got Zaru dropping like 1.4 ratings. But I think the Gamer Legion one, it's there's not a lot of firepower. But the thing I found interesting watching Gamer Legion is, and it is kind of the chaos factor, but Snax was doing a lot of lurking, like actually just straight up being the one like on his own as 4 people executed. And that's not really like a common thing at all. Like I looked into his trading numbers as well. Like he's like the bottom left of the chart. Like he doesn't get his deaths traded and he doesn't get his kills.
We could bring it up as well. I mean, from the article,
it is here somewhere.
Was it like a hamper style where he takes space and then?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. It's like he's in map control positions. Like Anubis is always the easy example. Like he'll take mid with maybe like another player going ahead of him because he's more of like I'll throw a flash for you than just jumping around a corner. And then when he's alive, like he will stay in mid and everyone else will go to A and hit the site or something. And that is kind of like the Nico role. It's you take the space and then he's really good at taking the space and winning duels like early in the round where it's most important to win those duels. And then he takes a back seat and can still lurk late round. Like that is kind of the opener role. Like it is so fluid. But it was Snax doing that in Gamer Legion. Like he's always the first one to turn around and go and watch the flank. Like he's always that guy. And this is the result, which is that you see Snax and he just doesn't get his death traded at all. Whereas HooXi, he's right in that bottom corner. Like this is like every player this year, and look how far right HooXi is. HooXi was jumping around every single corner, like on T-side. That was his job.
To do Prime Crystal type bait roll.
It's MSL, yeah. It's Crystal MSL. It's that type of IGL, and I think they are moving away from that. Like there's other IGLs who do this. Like Alexi and Apex are 2 big ones that will play like supportive roles. They're very good with utility. Like you don't have to be Snappy or HooXi jumping around a corner for it to work. It's just that this is now about when malbs is the one doing the bomb site entering, making his job as easy as possible. Because sometimes it is like, no matter how good you are, like Donk, people think of Donk as an entry fragger, but if it's like a tough entry route, like you can guarantee Chopper or Magix or Zontix even go ahead of him. Like he's not the first in every time. This malb situation is going to be more like a Yakinda on Liquid, where he's got 3 quite passive riflers. Like Hunter can do it, Nico can do it, but Nico likes doing it when like he feels set up to do it.
At the right
he's not
time,
going to do the horrible ones. He's not going to go ahead to make malbs feel comfortable, right? Like malbs is going to be thrown in the absolute deep end unless Snax changes a huge amount of how he plays. And I don't think that's worth doing. Like Snax has always been this sneaky lurker player. Like I don't think that will change in this GT team. I think it's on malbs.
Okay. Well, I think the thing is, if they give the correct resources to be able to, like, he's not going to win every fight, but as long as he gets traded, right? Like that's the thing. And then let's say that, you know, he wins 50% of the fights and he gets traded the other 50%. I'll fucking take that. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty good.
If you think of Prime Yakinda, I mean, he was winning those duels even like 55% of the time. And like, considering
he had nobody behind him.
I mean, sometimes nobody. Yeah, I mean, in VP that was like nobody behind him. I'm not just talking about those times though. But that is basically the Yakinda, right? But he was just like doing things on his own a lot of the time. This time you could have that guy who can win maybe slightly over 50%, but then a lot of the other 50% is going to be him getting traded, right? Because he has the players behind him to do that. So I think as much as it's obviously going to lower his output, and like anytime we put a player in strict positions like this where he's going to be the clear entry, then that's just going to happen. But at the same time, like I don't think of G2 as, especially this new G2, as a team that's going to be like very execute heavy, and they're going to do that a lot. I think it's going to be a lot of seesawing. So like pure entering is going to be not rare. Obviously, you have to do it kind of a lot on T side if on most of the maps, but there's plenty of ways for them not to have to do that on a consistent basis, because they have Hunter and Nico who will just lurk around and find openings otherwise, and in more of a smart way than just like executing straight up from spawn or whatever.
Yeah, I think I was talking about this the other day. Something that I think is necessary in modern day Counter-Strike is to have a bit of everything. Right? Yeah. I think defaulting and seesawing is probably your way to win out a lot of rounds, but you definitely need to have good pace changes and executes in there. And that's not rocket science anymore, right? Like that's, you guys should be able to get in the server and draw in a couple of rounds, then be able to call them when necessary. It's more going to be about the puzzle solving during the game, right? If they are running into a brick wall, how are they going to solve these things? And are there going to be a lot of voices? Because that problem hasn't changed. If you go back to the HooXi JKS roster, if you go back to the HooXi Nexa roster, I think you still have the same amount of voices as you had the entire time, because you're still going to have an in-game leader. This time it's just Snax instead of HooXi. Now, if malbs is going to be looking for more fights or being set up for more fights, well, more often than not, you're going to want him to go for fights that he's comfortable with, right? Not completely, like he can't just be doing exactly what you're saying Nico does before, but he's going to have to be calling for the flashes or the timing of certain things. That the likes of Hunter, Nico, and m0NESY are all going to be contributing into rounds. Like if m0NESY has a good spawn with an AWP, he's going to be taking that and calling to take those fights. So I think there's probably going to be a committee of players who are going to be contributing to the way they're approaching the game. It's just how are they going to be able to pass that information and then use what is the best option that's coming out of all of this, right? And that's where look, we could talk about a lot of this stuff until the cows come home, essentially. But one thing I wanted to ask, and it's even lovely here in the little notes, but do you think that Snax was the first option? Do either of you think Snax was the first option for this team?
I mean, I don't want to
you obviously have some information, because
I was going to say, like, I don't want to. No. I mean, that's that part of it too, but I don't want to put this out there as like a confirmed anything. But I did hear that they were looking into anchors. I'm not going to say specifically who, because I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to put too much out there without having it corroborated. But I did hear that they were looking at a couple of pretty key anchor players, or like some of the names that probably you were wondering about as well,
like a Perfector, for example.
Let's say, those types of players, So it seemed as if for a time they were at least entertaining this option that they would have Nico in-game leading, or maybe it was just going to be an in-game leader plus an anchor, instead of a malbs. But that's not how it looked, because malbs actually, like, he was the one that they were after long before everybody. Like, they actually pinned down the last player, so it seemed like malbs was the first one that they always wanted, and then they were looking into anchors at the same time. in the end, it's hard to say why they ended up going this route. It could be price, because like, yeah, if you're after, let's say, a Perfecto, we've heard the numbers that have been throwing around, that's 500,000, right? So if you want somebody who's actually that good, you're probably going to have to overpay. And I don't know that G2 is necessarily the organization that would put up such a big price for an anchor who
But hold up. I want to stop you there. I want to stop you right there, because they put up the same amount of money for malbs.
But that's the point. I mean, that's a guy that further down the line, maybe you expect him to be your star player. You know, maybe not right away, but at least that's somebody you can build off of in the future. Do you do that around an anchor? Not really. I mean, it's just somebody who rounds out the team, right? So do you want to really put up the big bucks? I'm not saying that like a Perfecto or a Crimbo or somebody like that wouldn't be worth that money, but for G2, they are not necessarily known to do that for those type of players. I mean, just look at Nexa, right? Like that was a very cheap option in terms of replacing JKS. Even when they got JKS, he was on Complexity's bench for however long. Like he was not an expensive buy, even though he was fairly high profile, you know, just because he didn't play for 2 years, it actually ended up being a really good deal for them. So they just don't have the history of overpaying for these types of players. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why. Because they already, maybe also because they already overpaid for mobs, you know, because that's already one risk that they took in terms of putting up a lot of money for a move. You know, imagine there was $1 billion instead of just 500,000. Let's say if those numbers are real. I have no idea actually. Like I've heard the same number for Perfecto, but I don't know if it's actually the case. I don't have it corroborated. I just heard it same way that everybody else has, you know, from some of these leakers. So it's I'm just going off of the same rumors as everybody else. But yeah, that's just my position. That's, I would imagine that even though they were entertaining it, they would have only gone for it if they had a really good option for that, one that they were willing to actually willing to pay for, or that one that would be cheap. And then they would maybe push on NiKo to pick up the IGL, just because, okay, we have this amazing player who will be cheap to get. This is an easy solution, you know. But it wasn't an easy solution, so maybe going the IGL route that was probably a lot cheaper was the preferable one. Also because, I mean, putting NiKo as an IGL is still a risk.
Of course. But I think either way, it's a risk, right? And do we have any figures of what they paid for Snax?
I don't. I would imagine it wasn't some high amount, though.
How long did Snax even get signed onto Gamer Legion for, right?
He was there from September, so his first year was up almost. Yeah, I would imagine it was longer than that. Typically it's 2 years nowadays that players get signed. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes with these deals that, like especially for players who are just coming back into tier 1 and stuff like that, maybe they just got a year-long deal just to see how it works. But a lot of the time there are like 3-month trial periods in the contract wrote in, and so you have like an option to get an early out. I don't want to speculate because I really don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
But I would imagine it is a lot cheaper than 500,000 for Perfecto. Let's just say that.
Okay. Are you of a similar vein there, Harry? Because Striker said an awful lot there, really. But did
sorry, I
no. I don't mean it in a bad way. Just that you've essentially covered the topic. But are you under the same impression, Harry, that it wasn't necessarily their first option chasing an in-game leader?
I think they definitely would have asked NiKo and maybe Hunter as well if they were willing to in-game lead, because it's just like you don't even need to get like a Crimbo level, Queserayo level like anchor. Like you don't need to spend the 600k to get a specialist anchor and feel comfortable. Like I think it was always the thing with HooXi, like defending HooXi to a point. Like I was always one of those people who's like, it's just not like the RGL market is just very sparse. Like unless you're getting like what kicks or Shui maybe out of the new generation, like ZTR gets mentioned, but in G2 would be crazy. So it is, yeah, like you look at it from a realistic perspective, and look, I'd love to see Crimbo in this team, but he looks like he's going to stay a big forever. Like he's
got a case
like
of the tabs.
Shush. Like I don't know what Shush's contract is, but I don't know. Like I guess it's quite expensive as well. But I didn't him and Twistzz renew at the same time, but only Twistzz has announced his extension. I might be making that up.
I think there was a world where Astralis were looking at Shush, and I think it ended up being too expensive at the time. So I mean, this is also like half a year or more than half a year ago now, so it's hard to tell. But I think that was a rumor at some point that I heard from around the scene.
Yeah, but even Nexa, like even keeping Nexa and not getting Snax, like I don't like if NiKo did want an IGL, then you wait for contracts to upgrade Nexa maybe later down the line. But I don't think that is worse. I don't think NiKo IGL and keeping Nexa is that different to Snax IGL and Nico Star. Like, I actually do think there was a world where Nico could have kept up the same numbers as an IGL.
Okay. Well, then I think there's a couple of other questions I would love to pose to you two gentlemen. Why not just keep HooXi?
I think it's just kind of breakdown of trust at that point. Especially, I know a lot of people like to point to Dallas, and I'm not sure that that decision was made right there and then just because it worked without him. I think there was probably conversations to replace him already leading up to that. I mean, when we had Petsa on the show, that was last Cologne, right? I think that was when we had Petsa on the show.
That's right.
And already at that point, and obviously they went on to win that tournament, so it didn't end up transpiring. But at that point, he was already kind of insinuating that they are considering changes, and the signs were definitely out there that it was going to be HooXi, because like at that time he was very emo and kind of down on himself and all that. So there was a lot of pressure on him.
He's always been emo and down on himself.
Maybe at that time it was much worse, but I mean recently as well, it's a bit different, right? But that was already conversation at that point. So I think once you start going down that line, and when that period of like without titles gets extended after Cologne, because I mean between Cologne and Dallas, it's like 9 months or something that they went without a trophy and without a real chance at a trophy, even because they didn't even go to a final in that period, you know. So even though they made deep runs all the time, obviously G2 is an organization that is out after winning, especially if you have players like WANNASEE and Nico. There's always going to be that pressure. So I think there was already a way where they were exploring that change anyway, and Dallas was maybe just the last straw, or maybe it was already even decided before that, you know. But I just don't think that the organization or the players necessarily had a lot of belief in that roster anymore.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment of trust. I think that winning without him in Dallas, regardless of the circumstances, and you know, how much did the event mean to a lot of other teams? You know, we can have that conversation, but we'd be you know, pissing in the wind essentially. I think doing it without him there, and also they were all talking about like the vibes, right? And I know it's a bit of a meme around this team because of the nexa edition, but I think once you have, you know, a build-up of negative stuff, and you hear some of these guys who are the sports psychs or whatever for the teams talking about like emptying the backpack and all this stuff, if there is built-up resentment and residue like that, unfortunately, sometimes the best way to deal with it is like this: just rip that Band-Aid off and then move on to something different, which I think the two of you are under the sentiment that Snax will frag better or has the potential to. I agree with that, even though he's older. The only thing that I think that lacking is obviously the tactical side, but with a team like this, is that even going to make that much of a difference? And then the other thing, I think, when you lose a JKS, and I don't know the stats on this, I'm sure some fucking stats cronies out there will be like, well, actually, but I thought nexa in times was decent in the clutch, and JKS was good in the clutch as well. So they do lose that to some regard, and that doesn't mean that the other players on the team aren't good in the clutch. Like, I think, you know, Hunter's had good impact moments in clutches, and Nico and WANNASEE can do it as well, but when you're an anchor player in those positions, you tend to be rotating into the bigger site later, right? And then you have to win these harder put together rounds. So I wonder if they lose a little bit of that, or somebody else has to step up into that role. So
Snax shouldn't be bad at it.
Yeah, well, you know, the problem is I have a hard time reconciling that Snax is 30 years of age now. When he joined with Taz and Pasha and Neo, him and Bialy were the young pups. Like, it's actually crazy.
Yeah, but it's 12 years ago now. So.
Exactly. Right. And you think about how long ago it was that they won that major. That was a decade ago as well. So it's hard to sit there and, you know, use those accolades as a thing to prop him up, because his career has gone through an entire evolution, right? He took plenty of time away from the game, at least at the top level, and then has had to grind his way back up. And now he's on a top tier team again with an opportunity to prove himself in a new role.
Yeah, I do think that if they were going to get an IGL, it was always going to have to be somebody with authority. And in terms of maybe not authority, but legacy, you know, somebody who actually can put your trust in.
Yeah, you can't fuck with it. Yeah.
That's why I was like, you know, even if you put one of these youngsters in, like, I don't think that there's always a guarantee that they would actually put a lot of trust in him, just because you have Nico, Hunter, and WANNASEE. You know, these are guys that they will always have their say and a lot of it as well. So it has to be somebody who will have somewhat of a natural authority. So that's why I kind of thought that making either Hunter or Nico the IGL was maybe the path of least resistance, just because of the lack of obvious IGL opportunities that they would have out there. I did not Like in my wildest dreams, I did not actually think that Snax was one of the options until very late in the process. So I wasn't even considering that. But looking at all the other options, I was like, maybe it is going to be that, just because like who else is going to have authority in this team? Nobody. Like you would have to put somebody from the top guys in there for them to actually have any sort of a say. And that's not going to happen because none of them are in the market. So that was always that seemed like the most plausible to me, even though I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that's probably a similar feeling that a lot of people had, right? I didn't even think it was possible at all. Like it wasn't an option that was on my bingo card whatsoever. I thought it could have gone much different ways than it did. I felt like, something like this would be more likely JKS would return to the fucking team than the direction it ended up. But no, here we are. Okay, so what else did I had another question I wanted to pose to you, gentlemen. Fuck. Oh, this one here. It's in the little runner show thing as well. I don't know if it should be. How much should we put in the relationship with Twistzz and Snax? Either way, the fact that they used to be teammates, they won a major together, and the fact that we know that there is a bit of a troubled history between the two of them. Obviously, the Mercedes situation was not enjoyed by everybody on VP, and I think Snax has been one of the members, at least within the Polish community, who's in pugs and stuff. He hasn't been too content with that. Obviously, I miss tone. I only get I don't really know what the tone of this stuff's being said in, but it's not meant to be too friendly, as far as I understand it. Now Twistzz is coaching this team and Snax is in-game leading. Is there anything here that we should be worried about it? They're adults, things change, they move on. What do we think?
I am worried for that, because as far as I know, they weren't even on speaking terms until fairly recently. So right. for that to be lingering for such a long time is definitely not a good sign. And it is kind of silly, and I don't know, I don't see everything into it. I haven't spoken to enough people about it to actually have a good enough opinion, but there's this weird sense of there still being lingering issues between Twistzz and his former teammates, at least some of them. I mean, there's this stupid situation where he just like removed a tag from Pasha's tweet, even though it was entirely positive and like nothing negative against it. Pasha literally tweeted, it was in Polish. I don't know if people caught it, but Pasha kind of hinted at it in his most recent tweet, where he was like, good luck to Snax and blah blah blah, good luck to the coach as well, but I'm not going to tag him because you know how it is. So there's definitely still some lingering issues between them. Hard to say how much of that is with Snax. As I said, like I just heard that they only started speaking again in recent history, so it's definitely not a non-factor. Let's just say that.
Okay, Harry, how are you keeping up with this drama?
I mean, not the drama side, but I do think you're right about the Snax kind of like, he just needs to be a leader of men, really. Like the tactical side, like honestly, Hunter and Nico will probably talk more on CT side if they are in like the active roles. But I think what you basically need from Snax is the kind of, and honestly as well, of course. Like you do need the elder statesman, vibe from Snax. You don't want him to be off in an alley arguing with Twistzz. Like I don't think, like surely that's buried by now. Like it's been too long. I think I would be shocked if they've not at least sorted it when they called up to make this move. Like there has to have been buried in some way at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was a conversation, and I'm sure in some way they cleared the air, but like these things, especially if they last for years, it's not always going to be the easiest to get past. So I'm just curious how that's going to develop, at least. And it's something that's definitely going to be worth keeping an eye on, asking them about and figuring out how they feel about that situation now, what's their relationship like and all that.
Does it feel like, though, if you have a leader like Snax, that you should have more of a tactical coach?
And you think Twistzz isn't? I'm just posing it out there. The thing is, like, we don't really know.
We don't know. So I would say that with HooXi in the team, an appointment of a coach like Twistzz is to clip everybody behind the ears when they're being dicks to each other, and kind of be there for more of the general demeanor and mood of the team. That's not saying that I don't think Twistzz can contribute. I think he can contribute, but he knows what it's like to be in big pressure situations in good teams, and he's done that for almost longer than anybody. Would you consider the 1.6 history as well? And he's played with very good star players, aka Neo, aka if the best, if not one of the best 1.6 players of all time, depending on which side of the fence you're on, Forest or a Neo fan. So Twistzz has been there. He's seen it all. But the thing that I saw as an issue with the old G2 was their demeanor to one another and the way that they would talk, right? Or maybe needing some attitude readjustments. Whereas now, HooXi, I don't know if I would say like what he brought to the game with the players that he had, it didn't have to be like crazy redefining of strategies, but it was still high level chess with strong pieces. The same game that karrigan plays, right? I have a couple of queens on the board on my chess.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was saying. That's why I was saying I don't even think that Snax needs to be some amazing IGL. He just needs to get the job done.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So, but what are we worried about potentially it drying up in terms of their approach to the game? Right.
I mean, we can see the opposite of this is if putting cadiaN into a team where lots of players do want their own style. Like I think a 2 tactical IGL or even like 2 tactical a coach, like in a G2 situation, like I think they just clash too much. Like I do think he just like this is the thing, like even Lourdes was joking about it, right? Like just have HooXi as analyst, like have HooXi do the prep, because I do think I don't know who their analyst is, but the Snax Taz combo maybe isn't like completely up to date. Like you don't expect like crazy new grenades from that IGL coach combo, but it is I just don't see a world where you can have Nico, Hunter, m0NESY plus an IGL and then they're all buying into this like super tactical setup. I think you do have to be very defaulty and just trust the mid rounds from players like that.
All right. Well, should we jump into doing some of these little games we've got?
Yeah.
See where we end up after that. All right. Do we want to start with Skinionaire or do we want to start with what are the odds?
I think we can take a break from all the G2 stuff, at least talking through it, because what are the odds is going to be a continuation of that.
Okay.
We could do Skinionaire.
All right. Well, we'll give Lucas a moment to get Skinionaire sorted. And while I do that, I will explain to everybody playing at home what Skinionaire is. If it's the first time joining us here on HLTV Confirmed, we're on a couple little games every time we do an episode. This one is called Who Wants to Be a Skinionaire? Brought to you by one of our lovely sponsors, trade.gg. So if you're in the marketplace for some skins, check them out. Now we have 5 questions. They're multiple choice. Is it Harry doing the answers today, Striker?
Yes.
Okay, Harry is going to be the man to answer the questions.
You can help him because I know the answers, so I can't be the lifeline.
I'm the lifeline. We have A, B, and C for each question. Every question that Harry gets correct, the little slider will move up 1 with a potential grand prize of a $50 skin voucher to be used at trade.gg. Now, if you're in chat and you would like an opportunity to win that $50 skin voucher or less, pending correct answers, type trade it in chat right now. No exclamation point required. And the more times you spam it, the happier you make me. So trade it in chat right now. And let's get things underway. Lucas, are you ready? Perfect. All right. Harry, question number 1. Lights dim, the music starts. Which of the following teams did Snax not play for? Anonymo, Honoris, or Monkey?
Ooh, I did play for Anonymo. I definitely played for Anonymo. I think Monkey. I think Monkey didn't. But honestly, I have no idea.
Who the fuck a Monkey? I don't think he played on Honoris though, because that was Neo and Tazz's project.
Yeah.
Unless he joined them later.
I've got no idea.
What a shit. We're fucking starting with these type of questions, mate. We're getting
it's just like the Polish wilderness.
Like, who knows?
I think it's a trick question because Honoris is a Polish team. They also were known as the Aristocrats or Aristocracy at some point. And Tazz was so happy that he had shortened their name to Arcy, which Machine and I had to explain to him in English is probably not what you want it to be. So I think it is B. To be honest.
Okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with B.
Locking in B. Correct answer is B.
Yeah, I mean the Tazz and Neo one should have given it away. I mean it is Tazz.
That's true. Good point. All right, that's all right. We're off the starting block. 1 for 1. All right, question number 2. For how many years was Snax in the HLTV top 20? 2, 3, or 4? This is good because it'll be a nice little history lesson for everybody playing at home.
It's 4, right? Because I wrote the news article and he's trying to trick me. Because I wrote 3-time top 5, I think. But it's 4.
Ooh,
I think it's 4.
Okay, all right. Well, just for people who aren't aware, in the early days of CSGO, Snax was an absolute monster. I think, it was all the way up until 2017, which was essentially the demise of VP as we know it. No longer at the top of the pops. All right, 2 from 2. Question number 3. What year did Snax leave VP the second time? 2019, 2020, or 2021? It.
Okay, well, when did Avangard go there?
Well, where did he go
by
between?
COVID,
Was it Mouse?
Oh yeah, Mouse. It was Mouse like 2018.
I believe Snax was in Mouse.
It was New York 2018, right? So then, yes, 2019.
How long was he in Mouse for?
Just trying to remember when Avangard became VP. It's like in COVID, it was definitely VP already. But it's either 19 or 20. I just don't know which one.
2019 they won the major, and then
They didn't win.
Yeah, major final in September.
You know what I mean?
Right?
Major, against Astralis, it may as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Gotta be 20 then. But maybe Snax left before they completely went to Avangard.
all right, 2020.
I just don't remember this time.
Let's fuck it. Let's go with it. Locking it in. B 2020, not C. Fucking hell.
I really like the Berlin. The Berlin angle was really good because that was like late 2019. The Vanguard was still there, so and there was still Vanguard
People
for
just
a while
get benched in like December. Like it's just
Yeah.
True. All right, question number 4. While in VP, Snax made it to the major final of MLG Columbus 2016, E-League Major 2017, E-League Major 2018.
It's 2017 because it's Atlanta. 13-7 lead. Never forget. Ever forget.
Then they went on and did the Clash for Cash against Astralis as its own thing.
Yeah, and they had Las Vegas as well. There's a famous incident.
A famous
They beat them at Las
yeah.
Vegas, and then it was the last time they like ever won a game together.
All right, look at an E-League Major 2017. Down to E-League Major 2017. All right, one more to go 5 from 5 here. Here we go. Question number 5. During his short stint for Mouse, we've already been here, Snax won ESL 1 New York 2018, Epicenter 2018, or ECS Season 6 Finals.
You already said it. It's New York. It's the Wolf of Wall Street, Chris J, isn't it? It's that one.
Yeah.
All right, locking in. A, ESL 1 New York 2018, correct. The confetti comes down, the strobe lights are going, the music starts, the people at home, they can't believe it. Bottles of champagne are being popped, and one lucky winner in chat has won themselves a $50 skin voucher. And that lucky winner is Paddy99_. That is Paddy, P-A-D-Y 99_ has been following since the year 2023. So a recent follower for HLTV. Congratulations. Congratulations to Harry. You got them all right. How does that feel?
Well, the first two are a bit squeaky bum time, but it happens.
Do we put it on your, profile on HLTV now?
Expert. Yeah, it needs loosening up, doesn't it? Definitely needs loosening up. I don't even know if I wrote that. I probably did.
What your favorite food in there or something is, mate? You know, favorite movie. You know, try and get a bit more of the personality out there for the people at home.
Beans on toast.
Obviously, yeah. With
okay. That's Who Wants to Be a Skinionaire, brought to you by trade.gg. Now, finally, let's get into what are the odds. This is a segment sponsored by 1xBet, and this is where the three of us will put a percentage on a question. And that question this week, Striker, is...
I have to say it?
Well, I don't know what it is, so I'm waiting for it to come up on the screen.
It's G2 ranked in the 4 by Shanghai. So I was thinking about kind of...
HLTV rankings is what we're going with?
Yes.
Okay.
I was thinking about kind of like as a title contender for Shanghai, but we can't leave it so vague. Otherwise, it's just going to be hard to define. And I didn't want to do a top 4 in Shanghai because it's just like one tournament result that you're putting everything on. So it's more like, are they going to be in good enough form to stay in like top 4 in like contention for titles by the time the major comes around?
So right now they're 6th in the world as per HLTV. Will that change next Monday with the roster change?
No, he's already out. Nexa's already out. Well, actually, no, malbs is already in there. Nexa's and HooXi's already out of that. So no, it's they're gonna stay on this.
Okay. So we come out with the Esports World Cup, then they'll go to Blast, then they'll have Cologne, then after Cologne they'll have Pro League. After Pro League, they'll have fall finals if they qualify. And then after that,
like Rio
if they want to go.
And then the RMRs. There's World Final as well that we don't know what's going to happen with.
It's the full season, isn't it, really?
Yeah. It's going to be decent. Like a lot of chances for them to actually have some deep runs, possibly win something if they're good enough. So like there's a decent chance for them to get there for sure, like theoretically.
So is this more weighing up the field, or how are we going to go about critiquing this, gentlemen? This is
currently they better than Spirit, Mouse, Vitality, Phase?
Yeah,
Na'Vi,
exactly.
Astralis, VP.
That's basically the conversation because we have the big 6 of the year, right? Which is the current top 6: Spirit, Vitality, Mouseface, Navi, G2, who have been kind of unequivocally the best 6 teams, and sometimes like it's kind of hard to determine who's maybe 3 to 6. So are they going to stay in the conversation where they can keep going for titles? Like is this move going to put them out of contention, or are they going to stay there?
Okay, well, I guess another question it makes me wonder is, are they better or worse than the old roster?
That is a good way to start.
I would say
like you can get lost in the roles, but it's so much more firepower. Like it's so much more. Like malbs is
essentially 3v5
such a good player. Yeah, so it's, but I don't know, top 4. Like I just think their chance would be if Vitality and FaZe continue to drop off, right?
If they win one of those events, they're going to get there. Probably.
Well, okay,
Yeah,
I think Spirit's probably safe, right? But then you have to start talking about everybody else. And then you go, okay, well, are Mal's going to be able to do it on a stage, right? That's still the big question about them. Are they going to be able to follow through in that regard? Well, Pro League is going to be in the studio again, so we don't need to consider that. That can stay out of the conversation. It's just the other events that need to come in for the conversation there. So, but Mal's can still, with just strong showings, they're great at owning group stages and getting into playoffs, and then that's where it seems to stall out. Are Vitality going to find themselves on a slide, or are they just going to continue to get like top 4s at events and that's about it? FaZe, are there worrying signs? Do we think that after the break, are they going to bounce back and look like their self from earlier stages within the year? These are all these questions. And then you have to, I kind of agree with, like, when I brought this up earlier in the show about Pitter's tweet about them being good in the short term. And if they're good in the short term, then that might be enough to propel them into the top 4 come Shanghai. But it's a long season because the major's at the end. So I think it would be safer to go with no, right? Because they're not a known quantity. And I think when they won their trophies, the impactful players were the Hunters and the JKSs of the worlds. So especially in the big games. So I don't know.
But now they have more people who can just pop off and just get them there eventually.
Yeah, but this is the thing, right? You discussed the malbs situation. 6 maps against the top teams, and it was 2 matches against G2 in a Pro League studio environment. Completely untested as far as the stage is concerned. So I think it would be safer for me to go with no. Well, wouldn't we go with no, right? I'd be going with a lower percentage, wouldn't I? So I don't know. Let me go with something like, just to be stupid, Cat went with 36%. I'll go with 37.5%.
I think it's lower. I think the field's quite strong, honestly. I think it's too much of a challenge to get people to learn all of these new spots that quickly. Like, yes, you can just fluke one tournament and be in the top 4. Like that can happen. But I just think Mouse have to get a bit better. Spirit have to be a lot better. Like, there's too many good teams that I'm more confident on than G2 to be in the top 4. Like, I think, 20, 25? We'll say 25.
25? Okay. Lucas, when we did, Lucas, can I not do point percentages? Sorry. Okay. Well, fair enough. He said no because it doesn't matter. So Nero's gone for 25%. I've gone 35%. The chat 36. Striker is the only one wearing a G2 piece of merchandise right now. What are you saying?
Before the chat thing came out, I was hovering somewhere around 40%, also leaning towards no, because of the same issues I have with this team. I'm not even sure short term you can necessarily bank on it, because it's dependent on how many players are involved in this weird shakeup, 1%. Because if you just move everybody around so that everybody is relatively happy, I think that's kind of ironically going to make it worse, because it's just going to make everybody have too much of a change. I'm just getting confused by this number going up and down. I said 40, Lucas. So I think it is very hard to tell at the moment without knowing what exactly they will do. But if the prediction that they will kind of mix it around a lot just so that everybody is reasonably happy is going to be true, I think it's going to take them longer than until the end of the year to peak. So I think I would probably lean towards no. But I think there's always a world where, we know what m0NESY can do on his own, and now they have somebody who can actually probably at least reasonably take over a game. as an entry. You know, like it's not going to be a donk who's just taking over every game, but there's a possibility that malbs is just going to rule from like the opening role. You know, if that's where they even put him. But still would probably hover towards no.
Okay. Well, that is what are the odds brought to you by 1xBet. You at home will get an opportunity to vote on this on Twitter as well as Instagram or X if you're cool. And at the end of the season, this money, depending on which way you guys vote, goes into a bit of a kitty, and then it'll be divided up, and Prof will do something fun with it for everybody playing at home.
We had one come to an end, right? I think
what one?
We finished one. I'm trying to remember. Dimitri sent it to me.
I'm more interested to know what.
Well, kind of, because we have the Nico LGL at more lands and Twistzz this year. I mean, we still have the one for
What
Nico.
did we go for that?
We went for. I mean, people went for yes.
The Nico winning game lead at more.
That will be like very heavily towards yes.
The people voted yes.
Yeah, but
we
I think we went
into it.
I think we went kind of somewhere down the 50-50-ish, right? We were pretty split on it. I don't remember exactly, but I thought there was one more that we didn't get. Well, whatever, doesn't matter. I guess we can figure that out next time we
can revisit it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just quickly before we wind her up, I think that we need to remember that we're only talking about one side of this change as opposed to the other. Now, Gamer Legion, obviously not a team that's at the top of Counter-Strike, but they're always a team that, you know, can put up a decent fight, and they have some skilled individuals in that team of younger names. I think you referenced the average age of them before being like 19 or something along those lines. We saw Endo and Slend. They had an opportunity to play at Pro League with Gamer Legion, and, you know, those two guys had their moments. That seemed fair to say. Flamus being added to the roster now. They have Volt, and they still have Ash as the coach. Do we have any inclination who might go there as an in-game leader, or would they use someone already there as an in-game leader? Does anybody have any thoughts about Gamer Legion?
I'll let you go on the new in-game leader. I'm not too sure, but
you think go in-game leader route?
What's sorry?
Well, it should be a new in-game leader, right? I just don't know if you've heard anything.
I have heard something. I'm not at liberty to say. Let's just say that. I think we'll hear very soon.
Is it HooXi?
No.
He's doing a smooya to us. Who do we think will get a team first this year, HooXi or cadiaN?
I have heard that there was an attempt at trading HooXi for stacks, but that's not what happened.
Why? Which side said no?
I don't know. I think HooXi's side said no.
But HooXi said no. Okay,
but I'm not.
We should have suggested that. The talent on this team is nuts. Honestly,
I would have
really like it.
I was also, when I was looking at this Gamer Legion, I was like, Snax actually makes a lot of sense there. It's such a young roster. You just need an elder statesman, you know, to kind of have the authority to be able to guide them, because it's like if they get somebody young, it's a very young roster, like too young of a roster, without any sort of an experience in it. So it's I'm curious.
Okay,
but it's like I think it's a good GMing job, honestly, because you just have all these people. Like CS2's been out long enough now that you are starting to have these prospects. Like Flamus is someone who like kept coming up on my spreadsheets as someone who was just really good for his roles, like consistently. So it's nice to see him step up, and do as well, like anchor on CT side, but still playing really well. Like Slend as well. Like it just feels like it's okay. They're all very young. Like it might be a case of they're not that good as a team, but two of them are really good, and you get to sell them for a lot of money later on. Like maybe that's fine for Gamer Legion, like as an actual goal. Like it's not here to win tournaments. It's just like some of these players will be tier 1 players in 2025. I think they're like, it's like the stats show up really well for all three of their youngsters. And I think Volt as a supportive piece is pretty underrated as well. I think he could, like, okay, a little bit of UK bias, but he is really good. I think he
sold the flag
do it on a slightly better team as well. He did sell the flag, but that's because we just don't allow dual nationality, really. So
forget about him. Forget it. Move on. All right, he's gone.
But
he's
I'm
gone.
keeping it. I'm keeping it.
All right, you take as many as you can. I understand.
If there was a World Cup, we'd get him. We'd get him in.
All right. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, you think some of those names? I think like if Liquid could buy Slend, it would be a player that they should look at buying, but I don't think that's happening. So
yeah.
Well, I know.
There's been a decent amount of chatter around Slend, definitely. I don't know about like obviously, you know, after he just joins the Gamer Legion team, it's probably not going to happen though. Yeah.
What about HooXi to bleed?
Imagine. Imagine if that happened.
Yeah, Casada really like that. What else?
What
have we
is?
got?
Do we
Nexa to
know? I didn't actually ask anybody, but do we know what's going to happen with this Bleed team regarding those slots? Are they just gonna? Did they just put themselves out of contention for a spot in the close qualifiers for the major?
What, ranking points wise?
Yeah.
Did they not have Jacob and Nork for long enough?
But the problem is
They've
they have
also
to keep
still
a core.
got Vladin's benched.
Oh,
still, right?
Oh, maybe they could do like a weird.
Come back,
but
like a
the problem is
thing.
though, like they're not gonna. Well, I don't know how it works exactly with how they.
It's just your
these
last.
scores.
It's just your last played game on HLTV because they kept putting stand-ins in. Like it's literally just your last roster on HLTV. I swear, like that's always been what Valve.
Yeah, but with the major, it's a bit different to how they send the actual invites. I think there's a world where they can submit a different roster, and then that gets considered instead. But I don't know about the process and how it works. I'm just curious because they have changed 3 players in recent times, and the Valve ranking basically works around the core. It doesn't even matter that you don't lose percentage points like in ESL or in HLTV.
Right.
Well, in ESL it's not percentage; it's actual points that the player brought. But you don't lose points for losing players. You lose your spot if your core goes away. Like only your core is getting considered basically. So I'm curious about how much they lost basically.
Mm-hmm. Any other news that we should talk about that's happened recently? There's nothing really since then, right? Snax.
No. Blame of config were almost on DSM.
But nothing news. That's great. Well, something that almost happened. Great. What else have we got here? That's really about it. So nothing too crazy. But this was just a special episode to discuss the G2 situation. Is there anything either of you feel that you want to say that you didn't say throughout the episode? Anything you want to leave the viewers with?
Maybe the one thing we didn't touch on loads is like the T-side roles and just having like what will happen with Hunter as the primary lurk, because it was another Peter tweet, wasn't it, saying Nexa was a little bit too passive, like he wasn't comfortable taking duels on his own too much. So I think having Hunter do that and having Nico do it on maybe 1 or 2 more maps to make malbs that like primary space taker, I think it could be a very interesting like dynamic T-side team, even if it's not setting the world alight tactically. I think that's maybe the only thing. But it was definitely an interesting change. It's just, let's see how it is in the server, I guess.
I just want to see who's throwing the flashes. That's my question.
I think it's going to be
Hunter.
Snax. Yeah, realistically, it's got to be.
Well, good luck to Snax and his flash assists, and I hope they work perfectly. All right, Prof is still getting that. What did I say?
Anal fissure treatment.
Yeah, so he won't be back until next week. So we'll probably do a show a couple of days after he returns, maybe just before things start getting back underway for the first event of the season. Which everybody, if you're wondering when the tournament break ends, it ends on Sunday, 14th of July. Teams will be back in the server, on the plains on the 15th of July. And there's already some teams who are starting to get back into practice now. Thank you, Harry, for joining us today to talk through all of the bits and bobs regarding G2. Thanks for Striker for repping red. Thanks for Lucas for being here. And thank you all for tuning in for another episode of HLTV Confirmed. Brought to you by 1xBet and Trader.gg. Goodbye.
Are you tired of your boring old skins? Head to Trade It and trade them for exciting new ones within seconds. With 24/7 support, massive inventory, free giveaways, and low fees, Trade It is the highest rated trading platform in the market. What are you waiting for? Start trading today for a $5 bonus, only on Trade It.
The world world is changing, but one thing remains the same. Victories with 1xbet.
Since the dawn of CSGO, we have been there. Observers of all that competition can reveal. Elation, fear, triumph and heartache reach out from every frame. From the small studios and conference rooms to the epic arenas, the feeling is still the same. We live and breathe this game. This was CSGO Through the Lens. Buy now at HLTV.org/shop.